So the session which we are going to start in this afternoon is about how our pharmaceutical industry and all other allied industries helped putting up all-round fight by tackling this pandemic with the help and coordination from all stakeholders, from industry to medical field force. And to talk on this and give us the insight stories and the inspiring, courageous work about millions of these healthcare professionals, we have today with us Mr. Maninder Singh Sani. He's the Managing Director of Lundbeck, India. He's a hand-on leader and is recognized for implementing successful business tactics and strategies. Lundbeck, India is very extensively working in the area of mental health and providing critical medications in that area. We have Mr. Vishwanath Swarup. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Bharat Serums and Vaccines Limited, the company which has also received an approval from the DCGI recently to conduct the phase 3 clinical trial for a medicine which is useful maybe in treating COVID-19 patients. We also have Gurmeet Singh Chugh, who will be joining us soon. He is the Managing Director of Translumina Therapeutics, a global developer and manufacturer of innovative cardiovascular medical devices. Also with us is Mr. Siddhartha Bhattacharya. He is the Secretary General of NATHEALTH, Healthcare Federation of India. NATHEALTH is an apex body of healthcare providers, device maker, and pharmaceutical companies in this country, and representing to their efforts to provide affordable, accessible care for all. So thank you so much, our esteemed speakers today. Maninder Sani, Siddharji, and Mr. Swarup. I'd like to start our discussion today, and as we are talking about that, how all stakeholders of our healthcare system, ecosystem, ensured that we are putting up an all-round fight against this pandemic, and this definitely required a lot of those efforts and a meticulous planning to ensure that nothing is impacting the supply of medical and medical products and other important devices and drugs. I'll begin with Mr. Maninder Sani. Mr. Sani, you saw, we see that mental health is becoming, kind of major epidemic in our country. And, this time of pandemic actually added a lot of mental health burden. How did you ensure, and what all is involved in your business and your work, where, how essential it is to ensure that the medicine and the other care keep reaching to the patients who are suffering from it, and how did you manage during this time of pandemic?
Thanks, Kamal, for asking this question. Before going to your question, first of all, would like to thanks to you and the entire council for arranging this gratitude week and inviting all of us to share our viewpoints. Now, coming to your question, before that, I would like to mention on the 24th of March, what happened. In fact, when our Honorable Prime Minister, looking into the situation, has declared the lockdown. So we were thinking that, okay, this will go for 21 days, but the experts were saying this is going to continue for a longer duration of time. And that time, what was the question in front of all the manufacturer or the pharmaceutical industry was in front of them? Actually, there are a couple of things those were into stake. So if I say in terms of number one was a raw material, second one is labor, third one was a supply chain, import and export. These all they need to coordinate together, and thereby that the supply of the goods and medicines we will be in a position to provide to the patient. Now, when you come to especially for a chronic disease, because this is a very important and pertinent question you have asked. For the benefit of your viewers, I feel there are a couple of diseases those comes into the chronic segment that starts right from the asthma, cancer, diabetes, depression, epilepsy, hypertension, tuberculosis, etc. And Kamal, you know that Indian has a sizable burden of these kind of diseases in India. And if you see that uh, chronic disease account for near about 53% of a total death each year in India. So this is itself is a very, very big chunk. And when we come to especially for depression or the chronic illness like depression, schizophrenia, etc., WHO says around 7.5% of Indians suffers from some of the mental health. However, according to the NIMHANS, which is basically is an autonomous institute, says near about 150 million individual, they need active physiological intervention for depression. So the question was in front of us that how can we continue the supply of medicines, and which were actually on the basis of these 4-5 factors, those I have mentioned earlier. So we need to coordinate all these things and finally to ensure the supply of medicines, because if they disrupt, right, so that can be a fatal in some condition, and can in some condition they can come to square one, because entire treatment will be they need to restart the treatment. So looking into this means that we have ensured the adequate supply from all the 4 points, whether it was labor, raw material, supply, your import, export, because we do import, a lot of import of medicines. So we planned accordingly, and we were little benefited because globally lockdown was imposed little before than what happened in India. So means that these were the few challenges by which we could put all the piece together and could able to maintain our supply of our products, especially in India. Over to Kamal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sani, for highlighting that how you ensured, and that definitely there is a massive NCD disease burden which need to be tackled, on an ongoing basis, and you cannot disrupt the supply of medications. Mr. Swarup, as Lundbeck is, prominently working in the area of mental health, you are, also taking care of multiple areas, and especially critical care, also diagnostics, I believe, and also a big portfolio of your work is in IVF or something like this. So when you make sure that the supply of medicines continues on critical care and something like this, what was your experience also, especially in the with respect to IVF related thing? Because something which we find is not essential, maybe very essential for a patient who is undergoing that. So how did you see that the whole situation emerging, and what was the response of your company and people?
Sure. Thank you, Kamal. I hope you can hear me. I'm having some internet issues today because of heavy rainfall.
It's all right.
Area.
Yeah.
Okay,
we are
great.
seeing a lot of those images from Mumbai. It's raining heavily.
Yeah. So first of all, I would want to congratulate you and the entire council for setting up this Gratitude Week. I think this is one, and hopefully only one in a lifetime event that we are all going through. And it's teaching us new things. It's teaching us how to work from home. It's teaching us how we make sure that little things in life which we had forgotten keep us happy. Right? So, and how important it is that the medical and the doctor fraternity, which honestly, over a period of time, we take for granted, and they're always there for us, how important they are, right? And when you hear of, and there are doctors living everywhere, even in our society, there are doctors living. And when you hear a doctor getting infected, and still the commitment of the rest of the doctors to continue to go back to work, it just shows what they have trained for and what they're delivering. I think they're nothing short of warriors for us, right? And we should respect them. And our memory tends to be very short. And I hope this is one learning we have coming out of COVID, that we remember the gratitude that we have for the fraternity, the entire medical fraternity today. So coming to your question, so of course the lockdown came in, and there was literally overnight a shutdown of operations. And I can see Maninder kind of smiling. We just went into a crisis management mode, let's be honest, right? And we came up with two equally important priorities, and we kept talking this to our teams. One, I think in this time, is their own safety becomes very, very important, right? Their safety, their family safety, and their team safety. And we said, let's make sure we are using the proper PPE equipment, maintaining social distancing, etc., etc. And this applies to right from our production facility to right to the field representative who visits a doctor, right? We kind of continued that message. The second, because we firmly believe unless you are well, you'll not be able to serve. So first, personal safety and your team safety. And then he said the equally important second priority is making sure essential medications are available for our patients and customers. Because we have a job at hand. And when you look at the doctor fraternity, they've set the bar so high for us that being a partner in this, it's only logical for us to be able to live towards that standard that they have set. So we rolled out very clear guidelines and managed the production facility of how we are going to continue to run. Of course, we were running at much lower capacity and lower head count so that we could maintain the social distancing. And then we did a very analysis of which are the products not for high revenue but are essential, and we need to prioritize them. And we kind of went through that exercise. So we had enough stocks of them. And then on the front end, we worked very closely with our channel partners to say that what is it that is required in what entire value chain so that essential medications are available. Now let me talk about the two segments. Clearly, there's one which is the critical care segment, right? And when I talk critical care segment, it is the hospital ICU. And you know what all ICUs in the country are going for right now. Highly sensitive. A team of how to connect with doctors' needs and be able to ensure those supply lines are maintained, right? While still maintaining social distancing and not going into a COVID facility. And that's the key channel. Digitally connecting through phones, right? The second piece, which is the IVF segment, which is the other, the pregnant mothers, right? That's also very, very important. And if a lady is pregnant during this time, she times so we made sure that our field colleagues work very closely with our partners to make sure our medicines are available. The critical ones to maintain pregnancy or something which is as an SOS. So again, right from our production to the field, two priorities. One is keep yourself safe, keep your team safe, keep your family, make sure you're providing the essential medications for our customers and our patients. So that was the simple motto. Yes, I'm happy to say that our team has responded well and have been able to provide the required essential services that we so importantly need. Thank you. Over to you, Kamal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Swarup. And it was good to hear that the company went on a crisis management mode, and also as you said that managed the crisis quite adequately. I'll go to Mr. Siddhartha on this. And Mr. Siddhartha, you are representing from healthcare providers to device makers to almost the entire gamut of India's healthcare system. What has been your experience? Because we saw a lot of those problems coming in, as Maninder ji highlighted, as Vishwanath also highlighted, that initially there were a little bit of a disruption because of multiple things, and especially the logistics, and then the local administrations and all that. Your fight is still continuing. I think pharma has got now settled in much more, but the hospitals fight is still continuing, because the rules are being coming, new rules coming almost I think every week or more than that. What has been your experience, and how did within that your partners, your stakeholders ensure that the care continue to reach to the people?
Sure. So namaste, first of all. I would like to echo the words of my co-panelists and congratulate you, Mr. Kamal, your whole team, and the council for taking up this initiative. We are in the middle of probably the most significant and unprecedented pandemic of our lives, and we should be grateful as a community for each and every of those who have contributed to the little successes we have had. And I think in the last few weeks and the months, these efforts are adding up, and I think India is headed towards a much more resilient effort and response to the pandemic in the way it is going to unfold. So first of all, thank you for the initiative. Let me just take a step back before I answer your question. NATHEALTH, as being a part of NATHEALTH, I am right in the center of the ecosystem of the healthcare. So on one hand of NATHEALTH, you have hospitals, you have all sizes of hospitals spread across India. You have diagnostics, testing labs. You have medical equipment at different parts of the value chain. You have those who are into supplies, IVDs. You also have really critical care equipment suppliers, both domestic as well as international. You have insurance companies. You have digital tech companies. You have home care companies. And you have a whole lot of service providers who are connected to the ecosystem. And NATHEALTH, being an institution, it also seamlessly interfaces with government on one hand, also other stakeholders, particularly the end services are meant for people. And as a community, COVID is something that entire India is experiencing in one go, along with the other countries around the world. So as the disease has progressed over the last 3-4 months, I think over a period of time, the entire health system has gotten engaged, right? It started with a few pieces of these really thinking what we should do. But over a period of time, all these pieces have gotten enacted. And I'm very fortunate to tell you that right from day one, private sector and government recognized that this is one such pandemic where there is no such delineation between the public sector and the private sector. Ultimately, it has to come together, harmoniously to respond to the scale of the challenge that is being posted. So, right from day one, there was a joint group that were set up, the industry federations, key players in government, other agencies that are going to support the response. They formed a cohesive unit. In the early days, once the lockdown was announced, while the intended purpose of the lockdown was to prevent the spread of COVID, the ecosystem had to deal with 99.99% of the patients were non-COVID patients there. And there was a certain way the care has to be delivered. And, just the borders being sealed, the airports being shut down, people not being allowed to go out of their home, that resulted in a major crisis. And I have to tell you that with the support of the government, district administrations, all sorts of regulatory authorities, they got involved, and they tried to ring fence the medical industry as a whole and tried to get it back on its feet as quickly as possible. So at least those were involved in the non-COVID emergencies, non-COVID medical facilities could access it. And it took some time and it took a lot of firefighting, but we got it pretty quickly established in the first couple of weeks. I think the way COVID has, unfolded, right around towards end of March, beginning April, the private sector first got involved in, testing and diagnostics in a big way. And government wanted the private laboratories to get involved, and private sector has significant capacities for RT-PCR, for all sorts of testing mechanisms. And right in March, April, and May, today India is doing about 2 lakh tests per day. 3 months back, it was a few thousand and has been incredible ramp up. And private sector has also contributed into that ramp with nearly 200 laboratories being empaneled by ICMR. The second pieces where the industry got involved was in jointly developing protocols along with government in terms of what is the standard of care, what is the delivery mechanisms, how do you create a dedicated COVID facility, what will qualify for home quarantine, what will require isolation, and what will require exposure to critical care pathways. And those joint forces of industry experts from government working together, many of the guidelines were published by the Union Ministry and adopted by many of the states. The third area where industry got involved early was using technology, and government published telemedicine guidelines, which allowed the home care providers, hospital providers to be able to really gain significant productivity. Here you had a situation where you have significant challenges. You have infrastructure not being available or being totally dedicated and ring-fenced for COVID. Telemedicine tech players came on board, and we are able to take those patients who did not want to come to the hospitals, were being taken care of at home. And the home care organizations, the hospitals, the doctors, they played a big role in doing that. I think the fourth aspect was really the home care organizations. They really took a lot of the load off the hospitals, and they developed significant capacities, first of all, in developing the protocols, and then government eventually coming and saying that 90% of the COVID patients with mild or asymptomatic patients need not be admitted to hospitals. And they were being then isolated and treated at home through remote triage and remote doctor consultation. I think the last part of what you are now seeing is increasingly the intensive care units are being called upon, and many of the states have requisitioned a significant part of the private sector capacity to cater to COVID patients and those who cannot be accommodated in government hospitals, or those who want to come to private hospital to begin with. So I think what the point I wanted to make is, if you see in sequence all these aspects of the health system, this is only possible. I would like to also mention the medtech companies, and whether it is about oxygen concentrators, whether it is about creating critical care equipment being serviced and being available. Ultimately, the service delivery happens not only because the infrastructure is one part, equipment is the second part, and the manpower, which is the doctors, the nurses, and the others. They have to come together. And the medtech industry played a huge role, one in ramping up domestic manufacturing in critical supplies. And those organizations who were able to get in a significant capacity earmarked for India and imported into India to help us scale up. I think the result is for everybody to see that, in the last 45 days, the caseload has gone up nearly 6-7 times compared to many countries. Our health system has been resilient this far. Our mortality rates are still among, are leading in terms of many of the countries around the world. And while this disease is still, unfolding, the system is growing at a rapid pace. That has only been possible because some of the entire ecosystem has come together. And this gratitude week is a great way for us to recognize the contribution for each and every of those silent actors who have contributed. So over to you, Kamal. That's a little bit.
Thank you so much, Siddharthji. And you actually highlighted a lot of positives which happened in the last these 4 months. And Gratitude Week is also all about, seeing those positive sides and how people have gone beyond their, sometime even call of duty, because, the risk of life and personal safety has been very, very high and for everyone. Maninderji, I would like to come back to you and then ask that, so we saw that, almost all three of you highlighted that there has been a response which helped, addressing the problem, and it was addressed well. But, this whole thing works on humans, and, you have seen that anxiety, which we all, underwent during the initial lockdown. And not only lockdown, now I believe that there is anxiety is need to be further building up, because the number of cases which we are seeing now, and though it is just a 2 to 3% mortality, but still it is a big number, because when it comes to a country of our size, this number itself can be a big burden on us. Maninderji, how did you see the whole human resource working in your company, in your industry, and how much they took up this challenge, and what kind of support system you created for them, or industry thought about creating immediately, so that everyone who is working in this ecosystem feel safe and obviously motivated and driven towards doing what best they can do to serve others.
Thanks, Kamal. Before coming to your answer, I feel Mr. Vishwanath has highlighted one very important thing, is that how are we going to protect our employees? Because that was the one very, very important thing. They need to be committed, and need to be people, those who are going to involve into the supply chain. Because initially, if you see in the couple of days, what was the issue was little bit of a supply chain. Otherwise, in terms of a stock, or in terms of a manufacturing, normally the company keeps 1 to 2 months of stock. So as you are aware, that I also having a responsibility, additional responsibility, as a co-chair of HR committee of OPPI. So one very big question was in front of us, that how can we from the OPPI side give the guidance or the suggestion, so that can can be applied by all our member companies, and our employees are the safe. Because the first concern was our employee safety. So first what we did, if you ask me about my organization, in the last couple of months, number one, we given the double the insurance coverage. Suppose we were having 3 lakhs as an insurance coverage, we gave 3 lakhs additional for COVID. Then we came up with a clear-cut guidelines. Means that in the OPPI HR leaders, we have segregated 3 groups. One is for the manufacturing, second one is for the office, and was the most critical for us was for the field work. Because major chunk of employees, they happens to be from the field. But this group, all the 3 groups, they work so good, so quick, that in a 7 to 8 days time, we could come out with a legally vetted suggestions, which we have rolled out to the entire OPPI members of the company. And it means that members were having they were free to choose, adopt, modify the recommendation or the suggestion. And by this, that we could ensure safety precaution, safety measurement of a different kind of a staff, whether it was a manufacturing staff, it was a field staff. Normally issue was for a field staff, because manufacturing, we get a global guidelines. field staff, India's situation was little different than the others.
Right.
So this OPI guidelines, they really helped us a lot. And I know that there was a lot of anxiety, but with this guidelines, this kind of a protection given, and making the things easy, because we have asked the employees, there is means that even the field employees, we have given a lot of liberties. Because of that, we could control the anxiety level from all across the Lundbeck, from all the employees. And the same is, I feel, is practiced by all other pharmaceutical organizations also. Over to Kamal.
Thank you so much, Maninder ji. Yes, so this is good that the industry quickly came up with the guidelines and created that kind of infrastructure and then support system among the people so that they can feel safe and then continue to their work. We are seeing that Mr. Gurmeet has joined us. Gurmeet ji, good afternoon. So I'll come back to you, Gurmeet ji. I'll first go to Vishwanath ji. Vishwanath, so are you connected, Vishwanath?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I think you have to save that internet is not
yes.
hampering you.
I'm trying to conserve.
Yeah. So Vishwanath, you saw that Siddhartha ji said, and that there has been a very proactive support from everyone, and the idea here also is to highlight all good work of people who ensure that our response is better and much more empathetic. How has been your experience in terms of your multiple other stakeholders, in that for that matter, your channel partners, or maybe those who were involved in the chemist distribution, and also the doctors cooperation for you, and what kind of incidents you got to see where you might have seen that there is a something where you need to get involved and make sure that this delivery of drug or the reach of this medication is ensured for somebody.
Sure. So Kamal, I think the point that was made earlier in terms of protecting our employees and enabling them, I think that's foremost. But I think we came together as a country, or came together as a sector overall, right? When we started this, and I guess what I'm trying to say is there's not one player in the entire healthcare space that can say, I championed the cause, because no individual or no particular segment did it. We came together in full force, right? When it came to talking, and I'll start with, where which all starts, our suppliers, right? So when we start talking to our partners and saying, here are the critical APIs that we need, here's the supply that we need, we got full cooperation with them, and they helped us prioritize those supplies. Then it came to the supply lines, working with the transportation companies. Our supply chain worked overnight on these, saying, what kind of documentation. And again, we are a large country and we are a very complex country, right? So even the simplest of things has so many iterations of it, right? So when the lockdown was announced, how will goods move and which goods would be allowed to move? And yet the government, I think, did very well in terms of coming out and clarifying things, because there's only so much you can do in one go, and they continue to work with us. So keeping those supply lines running was very, very critical. Sorry. Yeah.
Then Gurmeet ji,
Yeah.
Fine.
No, that's fine. So those supply lines running, right? Then when it came to maintaining the critical equipment, our plants, right? The suppliers, the partners, when we reached out to them in terms of some support, etc., we got overwhelming response. And then when the goods were made, there were some of our goods need to go for approval from the regulator. Our regulators have come and embraced digital outreach like anything, right? Gone are the days when you would think that it will slow us down or anything like that. They were proactive in this, right? They helped us there. And then it came to channel partners saying, okay, goods are ready. How do we move it? Who needs what? And then I think there are countless stories, and I've worked in this segment for a long time, where, I've some life-saving drugs, and you would, of course, see in the morning at 6 a.m. when you wake up, there was one baby being delivered somewhere, and there was an essential medication, and the stockist found a way to deliver that at 2:30 a.m. in the morning, right? Now, that's what our sector is about. That's when you read it, you feel proud about what we are contributing to the society as a sector, right? And I think there are countless stories around that. But I do want to make a point that this is not the only time I've heard those stories. When you are working in this space, you hear these stories throughout. It is just that they get accentuated in these times, and they get recognized because we are all going through, a little bit of a crisis ourselves, and we're looking for positive outcomes and positive news flashes. And when you read these saying, there is hope, and we will come together as a country, and we will overcome this. And that's the power of us coming together. So yeah, I mean, I can go on and on about this. But
thank you so much.
It's not the only time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Swarup, for highlighting this. And yes, that's what we are also emphasizing, that the role of healthcare industry has always been very, very critical. They have always been fighting this war somewhere, with some disease, and diseases which are much more, much more dangerous and take much bigger toll than what we are seeing in the pandemic. But this environment was a very different environment. It was a very different time when this work was done. So let me go to Gurmeet ji now. Gurmeet ji, you are the champion of Indian-made medical devices, and you have brought some of the very quality product, and bringing a lot of good intervention in the area of cardiovascular disease, and one of the biggest killer in our country. And maybe because of various region, and the reach and the affordability is one of the major reason. But how was your experience during this whole, pandemic lockdown time, where you also need to make sure the supply chain continues? That's a different thing, that we saw that lesser number of heart attack cases or this kind of cases were reported. So still, what was the scenario which you undergone during these last 4 months?
So thanks, Kamal. So I'll put it in two perspectives. The one were the challenges, and the other are the opportunities. So if I talk about the challenge, I think the panelists before me also highlighted a couple of things. And for medical devices, one of the challenges also remains for us is that these are life-saving devices, because we manufacture a couple of these devices, and we also market a couple of these devices, which are generally used during when somebody reports with a heart attack. So we couldn't have shut our shop even for a day. And so I think there are two things we had to, and in this times, as they say that these tough circumstances definitely not create your character, but at least reveal your character. So whatever you have done so far as an organization, so it's only that some people who haven't worked on these issues and were not ready for these kind of circumstances, they fell flat. But a couple of companies who have sorted out these issues long back in terms of channel partners, in terms of looking at what is the second support system of your plan A fails. So I think a lot of these things worked for us. The first and the foremost thing is, I think the commitment starts from the top. And personally for me, I can't recall since 16th March, from the day the lockdown happens, a single day where I would have missed my office. So, because all your colleagues, your employees look up to you. And as long as you give them a bold face, they get confidence and they feel motivated. The second issue which we got into was that we realized this is not a time of marketing. I mean, it's also not a time of survival, because there were some increased opportunity. It was a time of sorting out certain supply chain issues to reach out to your end user. And this is where we had an advantage of our flexibility. So instead of me spending time with my foreign counterparts in our marketing and clinical activities, we put all our focus and went back to our drawing board and redid all our supply chain issues. We changed our courier companies overnight. These large courier companies were not ready to pick up stocks. We went with a smaller one. We looked at all the states and tried to look at even the local partners. Like, for example, a state of Jharkhand was delivered by one person, one individual based out of Faridabad, and no daily courier company will take a consignment there. So we went to him. So there was a lot of analysis which we created because we knew that it has to reach there. And the second point is, as we are also manufacturing, there was a huge confusion in terms of the government guidelines. I mean, to an extent that one notification which was shared by MHA almost wrote as if somebody falls sick in your facility, the CEO will be apprehended to an extent of filing an FIR against him. So this was very, very confusing. But anything which is not a logical thing, I think in India you can now take it for granted that sooner or later somebody realizes it. So we were not worried with it. We were in a life-saving business, and I told my team to continue. We did some, as per the WHO rapid response guidelines, we changed all our manufacturing guidelines. We changed our distribution platform. We changed our warehousing guidelines accordingly and started doing this. And I think with God's grace, things started falling in order, and we rather created some beautiful partners for us in terms of the logistics during these times, who will probably live with us for the rest of our days, even during the peace times. The second part is the opportunities, and this is very important. As Kamalji, we have been interacting for quite a while. In fact, we have engaged multiple times to establish this anti-India or anti-Indian made products impression, which is for high-end medical devices. We have sorted it out at least for the low-end medical devices, but when it comes to implants, when it comes to stents, there is still an impression, not only on doctors, but even the whole ecosystem, that anything which is imported is good, and specifically with the overwhelming reliance on US FDA and American manufactured things. So I think this is where hospitals and the doctors started seeing the difference. They saw the Indian companies not only to come with the quality, but we were there with them during these crises also to support them. And the doctors who were unnecessarily putting pressures on their purchase heads, despite Indian companies being a better partners for them, but there was a lot of pressure which used to come from the doctors to confuse the purchase heads in these large corporates for multiple demands of these multinational products. I think somewhere this equilibrium got reached where the administration started taking a call which really helped us. Now, all the logic which we were trying to play around for so many years with them, they saw it, that when we told them that, look, at a time of crisis, Indian corporations would rise and support it. And once we say the Indian corporation, it is not anywhere where we are trying to compromise the quality. I mean, I have a very firm belief that a patient who walks into the hospital, he wants the best treatment at a lower cost. I mean, he's not predisposed to an idea of getting American, Chinese, I mean, whatever it may be, as long as he trusts his doctors and the doctor is giving him the best treatment. But we were under quite a, last several years, we are living under this unnecessary halo of imported products. And I think somewhere this has gone, at least if it is not broken, there are serious cracks in this overwhelming impression. Now they understand the importance of partnership with the local companies. We delivered them products. I mean, to an extent, as everybody, our business also got compromised. As you rightly said, heart attacks have come down. Not whether that is necessarily that patients are living healthier, or is it postponement of the disease, that we will only realize it later. But having said so, I think this has given us, this has given hospitals a new hope with the Indian companies, and it has also, to certain extent, consolidated our relationships. And I also believe that moving forward, this situation will create much higher opportunities for Indian companies, as long as they are focusing of the core principle of quality, technology, and healthcare delivery. As long as their core ethos are correct, I think this will rather create additional opportunities for them.
Thank you so much, Gurmeet for highlighting that. I'm sure there is a lot of those opportunities also being created. Uh, One question which we are also trying to tackle, and the reason of creating this whole gratitude week, is that we have seen over the period, and you touched a little bit on that, that there is a growing distrust uh, between the public, the patients, doctors, hospitals, and many times also with pharmaceutical companies. And there are a lot of those things which keep coming on. uh, we are all of opinion that somehow this uh, creates an environment which is not good for pursuing the idea of healing. uh, what is your experience, and what do you believe on that, Mr. Siddharth, about this, this uh, how this trust can be better, where equitable care is reaching, not much of you know uh, are those issues which may sometime lead to these kind of perceptions, which in a way uh, demolish or malign the image of this industry.
So I think, so first of all, thank you for asking me that question. This trust deficit is very real, okay? And we will have to, as an industry, as an ecosystem, have to do something about it. There's no easy way, and there's no silver bullet or a magic thing that if you did these one or two things, the trust is going to build, and you have to make conscious efforts. But I would like to make one or two points here. I think the solution start, the trust would really start building as you recognize that India is a vast country. I mean, when you are really trying to serve a patient in India, you have a patient the per capita income in India is about 10,000 rupees a month. And health is a subject where there's a fundamental right, and governments eventually would have to ensure that any citizen is not left behind, irrespective of their financial status. And there is a need for a system at the upper end that protects every single consumer, irrespective of their paying ability, and that can only happen as you create some form of a, whether it's a health insurance or a health financing system, where the premiums for those who can pay fully, they pay. Those who can pay partially, they are able to put in, and those who are not able to pay, government puts in through premiums. I think this journey has already started, right, with Ayushman Bharat, that really looks at the bottom 30% of the population. There's a lot of work to be done, at least in the missing middle class and the upper middle class. But if you really look at the projection of how financing penetration in India is going to go over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to take up from currently 20-25% of any form of population having insurance access. It will grow to about 50% to maybe 60-70%. So that's the first point. I think financing, and the point Mr. Chugh mentioned, financing is also a driver towards responsible regulations, and also a financer is going to look ultimately in the interest of a patient, and the patient ultimately cares for a better quality or better value, which is a better outcome at a lower cost, right? And that is something that will drive the system towards something that is more accountable over there. Having said that, I think there are opportunities. There are definitely a lot of noise around isolated cases that happens. And I think industry as a whole is becoming more and more conscious, and there is a much stronger dialogue that is happening today between the regulators and industry about isolated cases. I think the heart of it is going to lie in the transparency and the redesigning the system, the health systems, for better financing, where every patient or a doctor, when they treat somebody, they really look at their best possible interest. And as the system matures, I can only tell you health systems mature over 10, 15, 20 years. India has started in that direction, and things will fall in place.
Thank you so much. So, quite optimistic about that, and definitely, I think this pandemic will also change a lot of public perception. We have seen a very, very different image, and one thing is that when you start realizing the importance of the healthcare providers, then you also start empathizing with them. I'll go with the one question with to Maninder ji and Mr. Swarup and to Mr. Gurmeet. Maninder ji, how do you see and this is going to be about your own, area of work primarily. So how do you see the mental health piece is, growing in India in terms of more people getting to know about this issue, and we are able to provide better care for them, which is largely not there, and maybe a denial may be one of the reason of that.
Can you repeat, Kamal, once again your question?
So I'm asking that how do you see that the mental health care, especially we have seen a surge during this lockdown time and the pandemic time. How do you see that the mental health care is going to coming on the priority of the our society, and then it will be gradually reach to a level where we will be having more care available for mental health related issues?
I feel a very, very important question raised by you, Kamal. If you look and compare this mental health illness as compared to the other disease, right? Whether patient is having asthma, diabetes, other things, they themselves go to the market, to the doctor. But when it comes to the mental illness, mental health, normally means that our patients, they are not that much of a vocal, and this is a very, very important and a bigger issue, because here is that you need to have somebody to support the patient to go to the doctor and get the medicine. There are ample of good treatment is available, but the only thing is that taking patient to the doctor. So here is, I feel that not from the government side, even from the private organization, we need to do a lot of disease awareness activity. We have to conduct. Those will also be able to perceive that mental illness is also as an illness like hypertension, diabetes, and other things. And that is what is very, very important. If we are able to take our patient and we deal with a lot of sympathy and take them to the doctor, the things are going to be solved. So I feel here is that the patient education is going to be key for mental health treatment, diagnosis, and taking care of patient, because burden size is very high. That's means that data suggested by different authority. So disease awareness is going to be a key driver for mental health or mental illness. Over to you, Kamal.
Thank you so much. So Vishwanath ji, a lot of drugs are under trials, investigation, and we hear from government that we may get or not maybe, and then it is also denied later on that we may get even a vaccine by 15th of August. You are also your company is involved in a drug trial, which is the phase 3 trial, and apparently it's going to be one of the hopeful candidate in terms of providing cure for this pandemic. How do you see this whole thing going forward, and how soon we are going to get either a medicine or a vaccine? And also especially when in the context of that all those drugs from remdesivir to others are also being put under the scanner, that they may not be helping the way we were thinking that they are helping.
Kamal, very, very valid question. I wish I had a clear answer and a date and a time where we would have it. Unfortunately not. I think it's work in progress. And so a couple of things what I can say, right? One, I think I wouldn't like to comment on the drugs which have been repurposed, remdesivir or any other drug. I think there are technical experts to kind of opine on that. It's not my area, not my role to kind of comment on that. I'll stay away from that. Secondly, we certainly hope, and that's why we've requested permission to conduct the trial for one of our drugs, which is repurposed. We firmly believe that it can provide a good solution in the ARDS cases. And we feel we are following the government approved protocol for following the process, and it will be a longer process, but again it is the right thing to do. So we'll go through that process, and hopefully we'll have a solution for this, right? I mean, that's what we are all hoping for. What I would say is I would not look at that from a commercial angle, but more from something that if we can be successful, it'll solve a crisis that we are going through as a country, as a sector, in matter. So I think that's how we are viewing it internally, saying this is a all critical piece for us, and that's why we're putting our best foot forward. It is repurposing of an existing drug, so and we know a lot about it. Since we were the first ones to kind of bring it to India and kind of have that product. The last thing I would say in terms of timelines, like you said, of when, I think it's every passing day is a day that we can do without having a solution. So the sooner, I mean, if the 15th August deadline happens, I think all of us, not just me, will be so very happy about that success, because then it'll put to bed. And what better than, our own country providing a solution to the entire world. We are already the pharmacy of the world. We are already the largest provider of hydroxychloroquine when the crisis hit, and we offered solutions to different countries, very developed countries, right? And that's the matter of national pride. And that's what I would look forward to. That 15th August deadline, I think it'll be a new era and the new India, as our beloved Prime Minister calls it, I think will be another milestone towards that. So all power to that.
Thank you so much, and actually, all the best and good luck for you also for the trial which is going on, and we are really looking forward that some important solutions should come to our way faster than later. Last question, remark from Gurmeet ji. Gurmeet ji, you talked about opportunities, and this is the India which is trying to become now Atmanirbhar Bharat, the self-reliant India. And obviously, I think that also include that we need to reduce our dependency on any kind of imports, including the stents and then the devices which you manufacture. How do you see it, rolling out? And do you see that Indian products will be very soon fill those gaps which we were seeing, and will be able to address the problem as well as, help making Indian product go globally?
So, Kamal, that's a very good question. Now, I think 4 to 6 weeks, there have been a lot of government committees, which I'm also participating, to look at that how this current and also this the last Atmanirbhar Bharat, and what is the roadmap to create it. See, one of the thing is that we must introspect to find out that where have we gone wrong in the last couple of years, because that is very important to create a strong platform. Now, what we see as Made in India becoming a little bit self-reliant and when we talk about whether it's a pharmaceuticals or whether it is medical devices, has been in the low-end segment. Even in terms of working on research, it was always a backward research. It was on technologies which have already been invented, are in use, and we created a stripped down version using our Indian innovation, which is also called a Jugaad innovation. Try to look at how we create a mass market out of it. But until we gear ourselves to create technologies, to create pharmaceutical molecules which are created for the world from India, we will not get that space in international markets. And this is where it is very important. Now, what parallelly needs to follow the journey is that the companies which are currently into the manufacturing, have to focus on very high quality. We must understand today when a doctor is using a American made product and something goes wrong with it, he will nobody will blame him, because it may be considered that it's just one-off case where the product has gone wrong. Despite several recalls in our field, I talk about stents, there have been several recalls by US FDA, but even till today when something goes wrong with a American product, I mean, they would blame it to that to the technique or to the procedure. But if something goes wrong with the Indian product, there'll be a reasonable hue and cry. So one responsibility, I think, as a manufacturer and as an Indian manufacturers, we have on our head is to create very high level of quality. And once we are going for this level of quality, this is not a real reason to start everything from scratch, just on a race to become self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. I'm seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs unnecessarily trying to create everything from scratch by themselves. The world belongs to partnerships. You need to look around. You need to look at the best R&D labs in the world, best hospitals in the world. Go there, create partnership with them. Today, my company represent the highest evidence ever created in drug-eluting stents by any other company in the world. Today, our clinical evidence is stronger than American multinational because this is the longest evidence. But while we were creating it, it was a huge dependence on the German hospital with whom we partnered. So the second point is, the first is quality. The second point is a sense of partnership. Unless you create this partnership, this is a very tough journey to go just by yourself. And a lot of people are wasting government funds by taking these grants, incentives, and just playing a small gamble on someone's else expense, which is not a good idea. The third is government. Now, government has to ensure that Indian companies get market access. Now, you create quality, you go for a tender, and suddenly you see written there that the product must be US FDA approved. And this is a big demotivation for youngsters, the young companies. So when you create your market access, every time a country has forgiven initial mistakes of their manufacturers, even if something goes a little higher wrong, or maybe the quality is at a level of 90 compared to 95, every company has gone through these teething troubles, and Indian companies will also go through, and we will have some supply related issue. But at the end of the day, the government has to come very, very firm on Indian tenders, on government hospitals preferring Indian manufactured products. And the right ecosystem is that the companies deliver the quality and the system gives them a preferred access. Now, until that happens, this will just remains a slogan. And point number 4 is where the patient, the society, and everybody comes into the play. I think somewhere down the line, you must understand that quality is not a birthright of capitalists. So which means that the companies which are young, the companies which are aspiring for a high quality, they necessarily don't need to be American or a Swiss or a European multinational. What is happening internationally? Somebody who's creating a quality, these companies acquire them. So a couple of Indian companies are also capable. So instead of differentiating between imported products and Indian, keeping in mind that imported are good and Indian are bad, I think we need to move up to a line where there are good and bad imported products and there are good and bad Indian products, and give equal chance to Indian manufactured technologies, Indian manufactured pharmaceutical molecules. And until this whole ecosystem becomes positive, I think we will still be facing challenges. But I am extremely hopeful that as we are moving ahead, everybody is realizing it. And I think future looks bright. There are some smart young companies in our sector which are putting all their stuff on the quality, clinical trials, clinical proofs, clinical evidences. And I think as long as we are on the right path, I see a great future for Indian pharma and Indian medical device companies, at least in the next 10 years.
Thank you so much, Gurmeet ji. So here we, come to the end of this discussion, and all 4 of you, our heartfelt gratitude for all of you for doing wonderful work at your, area of, expertise and your companies, and to lead that, a lot of those people who ensured that healthcare keep reaching to the people. So here was our, session. So thank you so much, Mr. Gurmeet, Mr. Vishwanath Swarup, Mr. Gurmeet, and also Maninder ji,
Thank you.
Mr. Siddhartha, for joining us this afternoon.